Hey everyone, welcome to today's edition of One Single Story. It is Tuesday. We're in the book of Ecclesiastes. I'm with Sheryl Daughety and Alyssa Bream, and we're in Ecclesiastes 5 today. And it says, as you enter the house of God, keep your ears open and your mouth shut. It is evil to make mindless offerings to God. Don't make rash promises and don't be hasty in bringing matters before God. After all, God is in heaven and you are on earth, so let your words be few. Too much activity gives you restless dreams. Too many words makes you a fool. When you make a promise to God, don't delay in following through, for God takes no pleasure in fools. Keep all promises you make to him. It is better to say nothing than to keep a promise, than to make a promise and not do it. Later, he goes on and he says, people who work hard sleep well, whether they eat little or much, but the rich seldom get a good night's sleep. There's another serious problem I've seen under the sun. Hoarding riches harms the saver. Money is put into risky investments that turn sour, and everything is lost. In the end, there is nothing left to pass on to one's children. We all come to the end of our lives as naked and empty-handed as the day we were born. We can't take our riches with us. Now, that's a kind of a popular saying. You can't take it with you. And I grew up in a church environment, not that, what's the word I'm looking for? Elevated people who were poor. Mm-hmm. You know, that like I would say jokingly, like the two things that made you holy were to be broke and ugly. And that was.
Do you think that's referring back to the Sermon on the Mount?
Well, I think sometimes I think there are a lot of scriptures you can take that from. You know that.
No, I mean people thinking that what you're saying.
Being broken ugly.
Yeah,
I would say some of it. Yeah,
the humble, the poor.
Right. Yeah, and I think there are clear challenges to wealth. In period, like there are clear challenges to wealth, but Solomon was the wealthiest man that ever lived, even still today. That, like, based on historical records, they say he would be a trillionaire today. There's no individual that has $1 trillion.
I did look up in preparation for this who was the wealthiest person currently, and it was somebody who I didn't know.
It's just changed.
Really?
It just changed. Fortune just named a new person. Give me a second. He owns
Louis Vuitton.
That's right. He owns all the
I don't know his name.
big brands.
Yeah.
He does not.
I just read that article this week. It just changed. It was Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And it was Jeff Bezos before that. Mm-hmm. And now he owns a lot of luxury brands. Louis Vuitton. Yeah. The name of his company is LV, which is Louis Vuitton. There's two other.
Then I think BV maybe.
Maybe something like that. Yeah. So, and he's not a trillionaire.
I want to say it was like 500 billion.
Yeah, which ain't broke. Bless his heart, right? And you know,
the interesting, a few thousand.
Yeah, the interesting thing about that is they have access to money to spend, but that's not all in cash they could spend.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
No. It's not in a bank account.
The question that I want to ask today, because this is a real tension. I believe it is a real tension that you have to think about. Is it okay to be wealthy, and how do you know when you have enough?
So when I was working at Chick-fil-A, not a wealthy job, I'll tell you. The Truett Cathy, the owner and founder of Chick-fil-A, came out with a book called Wealth, Is It Worth It? And I don't remember what was in the book, but the operator at the time bought the book for me and Tyler and said, hey, read this is really good. And I was like, let me guess. He says it's not worth it. And he goes, no, he says it's worth it. And because of what you can do with your money was kind of the thing. But I don't know. It was kind of a weird book. It just kind of was like, yeah, when you have money, you can do nice things. But when you look at the people who just hoard the wealth, like Bezos and some of these other names that we just talked about, it's like, what are you even going to do with $500 billion? Mm-hmm. Like, that is more money than a person could ever spend in a lifetime. And to me, that much wealth seems quite immoral. Mm-hmm. But the line from amount of moral wealth to immoral wealth that's not a number I'm going to even guess at.
So is it the amount that is immoral, or is it
how somebody
how they
handles it.
use it that's immoral?
Well, I've often said, when somebody asks you, like, what would you do if you won however much money in the lottery? And I often feel like I would not want to be responsible for that much money and having to make decisions about how to handle it in a good way, in the best
one
way.
of the verses I read, he says, rich people don't get a good night's sleep
Right.
because there's a lot to consider.
Mhm.
Like,
And that's before cell phones would wake them up in the middle of the night with like stock, like holding things, or like people would be like, oh my goodness, there's this issue at
there's just so many more decisions to make. I don't consider myself wealthy, but I'm in a different place than I was a long time ago. And the choices that I have to make today are completely different than the choices I made when I was in my 20s, 30s, and 40s. I don't know that. So I probably differ with you in believing that there's an amount that is immoral. But I do think there is what you do with it becomes immoral. So there's Bill Gates, and I just know mentioning his name is going to send some people into a tizzy. But he began, I believe it's called the Giving Challenge. Maybe it's something else, but he challenged billionaires that by the time they die to have given their wealth away, in some form or fashion. And lots of them have signed up. Warren Buffett has signed up, to give the overwhelming majority of their wealth away. Now, do I think that giving it to, I might choose different places than they chose to give, but we believe that if we have more, we're going to give more. Mm-hmm. But statistics do not bear that out. Yeah. I think that's the rub. Mm-hmm. Statistics bear out that the more we get, the less a percentage we give. There are people, like I specifically remember when Mitt Romney was running for president, the big tax, they want to see your tax returns. And on his tax returns, it showed that he gave away 15% of his income. That's pretty significant, because the average is less than 2% for somebody who's in that position. And really? Oh yes, way, way less. Billionaires give away less than 2% of their annual income on average. It's crazy.
Shame on you.
Yeah. So I think the sin is not the amount, because if you own Amazon or you own Tesla and you're creating jobs and you're putting people to work and you're paying them fair wages, and you're getting wealthy because of that. Most of that's in stock value because you've built a company that I don't have a problem with that. But if you hoard it, the word is hoard. Like if you hoard it all and you stop giving, and the question is that I kind of want to explore is, how do you know when enough is enough? I know two people personally, and that's all I know. Two people personally who have stopped who give away now more than they're given. Mm. I know two people.
You mean give away more than they're earning?
Right. Like now they don't need any more money. They give it all away. Mm-hmm. I've heard stories that Rick Warren gives away 90% of his income. I would believe that. I consider him to be a very honorable person. Like from a distance, everything I've ever seen out of him was very honorable. But I know two people personally that do that. But I know more people personally who said, if I ever got this much, that would be enough. And then when they got that much, they were like, well, no, times have changed. I need, I need more, and I need more, and I need more. And it never seems to end. And there's always this, I've got to have more. So how do you know when enough is enough?
Well, this is what I would say to, you talk about it's what they do with the money. I think it's also a large component is how they get the money. And so, like, you're saying, like, well, Jeff Bezos, he creates all these jobs. But if you look at the working conditions that he has created and how he has been like, you don't get bathroom breaks and all of these things that are just, like, ridiculous at Amazon warehouses in order to make that much money. Mm-hmm. It's right. Like, you could afford to give everybody an hour break or
Right.
like time to do, and so I think that that is a large component of why I would say at that level, you have to exploit people in order to make that much money.
Yeah, well, I think if you're exploiting people, then that's a different
Right. But
animal.
yeah, so
Yeah.
what's your next question? Sorry.
No,
I
I
just
don't.
ignored your question
No,
and
you're
talked
fine
about what I
because
wanted to.
I do think that's a tension that's not easily resolved. Even I recognize that the wealthier you are, the more tax advantages you have.
Mm.
You can raise the rate all you want to, but like there are things you can do. Owning real estate is like one of the most tax advantageous things anybody can do in the whole wide world. Well, poor people can't buy. They can't even buy their own home, much less rental property that allows them to depreciate, take expense. It's just they just can't do it. And so you have to think about how does the world tilt. Obviously, I have an entrepreneur mind. I'm always looking for ways to do more, to make more, to earn more, make things bigger, better, whatever. But I think it's easy to turn selfish.
Yeah, I mean, in that same regard, and to answer a couple of your questions, I think the same way that Alyssa said, like, well, how are you making the money? I also think it's a question of how you're spending your time. Because if enough is never going to be enough, then you're going to spend all of your time chasing wealth, as opposed to, as he says later, like, take the time to learn to enjoy it, because you cannot take it with you when you go. You may be able to have some control over where it's going to go, but if you have not been thankful for what God has provided for you, and you're not willing to share it with people, and you have literally spent your life continuing to chase more, then what was the point of all of it?
Right? Do you know people who do not enjoy what they've earned?
Yes.
And what is your insight to those people?
I think some of it can be based on background of, like, if it was always a struggle just to get by, then I think it's easier for you to feel like, well, this might not be quite enough, but a little bit more would be enough. And if I can just get there, then I can enjoy everything I've got. When you may not ever get to that point.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like sometimes you just have to stop and say, like, I have to put this on my calendar that this week, this is what I'm going to do with these people or in this place. I think you have to make it a priority. Some people, I don't know. I'm very easily motivated, and I don't have to have somebody down behind me to get things accomplished. But at the same time, and I don't like to sit around watching a bunch of TV and stuff like that. It's just not my personality. But I don't want to be working 24/7 either. I mean, I feel like for me personally, I can't enjoy the people in my life. I can't enjoy the home we've created. I can't enjoy relationships and lots
Mm-hmm.
of other things if all I'm thinking about is how I'm going to make that next dollar. I feel like you can't even enjoy the dollars that you've made
Right.
if that's still what you're just constantly continuing to do.
Yeah, it doesn't matter how much money you have if you haven't built the life that you want and made time for those things that you need, like family and hobbies that you enjoy and all
Mhm.
of that. I think that that is the the key to finding some happiness in life, because money isn't going to get anybody happiness because there's always more.
And you know what? I mean, in hindsight, I think that when our kids were younger, and we're not wealthy by any means now either, but thank goodness we're not struggling as much as we were then. I also look at the relationships of, like, me and my kids and just our whole family unit. We did so much more stuff together that cost almost nothing, because we couldn't afford to go do a lot of the expensive vacations or really any vacations for a while. Um, but I think that we were closer in a lot of ways too, because we didn't have as many distractions and concerns, because there were some things we just accepted about the fact that, like, this is how things are going to be, and we enjoy what we have, and we're thankful we have food on the table, and
Right.
we can pay our electric bill. I think that I don't know. I certainly understand a lot of the struggles of not having enough money because I've worked 2 jobs way more than once in my life. But I also think that you have to be able to stop and enjoy whatever it is you have at the time and be thankful for it. Because if you're always chasing, you're always going to be chasing, and then it's going to be over.
Right.
And that's
Before
how
you
you're
know
going
it.
to have spent your life.
Well, let me ask you, how do you enjoy your money? Because that's when he gets to the end, he says, you need to stop, eat, drink, and enjoy your stuff. So how do you enjoy your
What money?
well,
That's-
your rewards? How do you enjoy? The fruit of your labor? This is the most fun I have.
I mean, I'm really thankful to be able to pay bills and not have to worry about it because that's not always been the case.
Right.
I mean, I know that's not what you're talking about, but I mean, I am thankful that we can go experience some things that we couldn't have in the past, but we still don't do extravagant things, and we do both really enjoy being able to give without reservation of, well, we're not sure if we're going to be able to buy groceries this week, because we have been in that position before years ago, where we did give faithfully despite the circumstances, and God continued to provide for us. And in a lot of ways, I think He's rewarded us for that. And we both still enjoy being able to help someone if we see that somebody's in need, or like if the church is doing a big project or mission that we want to be able to give to. We feel like it's our responsibility not to be frivolous with our money, so that when God prompts us to do things like that, that we can, that we're able to. I mean, there's a lot of enjoyment in that because it's not as fleeting as going and buying,
Right.
the expensive purse or the expensive car or whatever.
I think at this stage in life that I'm at, it's doing things for my kids that they enjoy, like, or buying them, the bike that they want, or, just like small things like that, we're able to let them have a good life. And it's nice to see their enjoyment in that.
The 2 things I enjoy doing most with my money is being able to give, because I tell people there's nothing worse than wanting to give and not being able to, and so being in a place that I can give and not think about it. And then I love to travel. Like, I just love to be able to not to think about it. Okay, if I want to go here, I can. And I'm in a odd place because I have a business that pretty much gives me a few million miles a year that I can use to do.
I thought you were going to say dollars.
No. Miles with a credit card, that I can use to go about anywhere I want to go and do anything I want to do. So that takes a lot of that burden off. But I just love to travel and see new things. And we were, and you never know who you're going to run into. Like we were traveling, we went out of the country with our grandkids last week from when we're recording this, and we're standing in line, and this guy has on a hat, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure he's from somewhere close by where we live. And I said, "Are you from Manio?" And he said, "Yeah." How did you know? He had a hat on that was a business there. He said, "Yeah." He said, "I was born and raised there." And that's where he lived now. So I live in Eaton, and it's weird how you can go to random places and run into people, but just to learn culture. Like, those are the 2 things that I enjoy the most. Paying bills is if you've never been where you couldn't pay your bills, paying bills is a joy.
I mean, it's not something you want to do, but you're glad you can.
Yeah, it's a treat to be able to say, you know what, I don't have
Yeah.
to think about this today.
And not lose sleep over
That's
it.
right. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you'll be back tomorrow as we continue our conversation about the book of Ecclesiastes.